As a participant, I found it very interesting that you talked about Hungary and the criticism of the EU against, and the European Parliament and the Greens specifically, about the way Hungarian democracy developed in the past few years. Now, you're coming from an ancient democracy, Greece. What do you feel about the EU criticizing your own country, for example? And do you think we should be happy about these criticisms? Many people in Hungary believe that we are not treated fairly. What's your view on that?
Well, it's not about criticism. It's more about monitoring and reporting on specific countries in the European Union, because the European Union as it is now is a bit hypocritical and implements double standards. For example, the EU is very vocal on criticizing and scrutinizing human rights in third countries all over the world, but we never talk about human rights in the European Union, or we rarely do. There is not a permanent monitoring mechanism that would allow us to see the state of democracy, the state of the justice system, the rule of law, and the situation of fundamental rights within the European Union. For example, in order to become a member of the European Union, candidate countries have to live up to certain criteria, the known Copenhagen criteria. But once a country becomes an EU member state, then there is no more monitoring and criticizing or scrutinizing about the situation. And there is a policy in the EU and this position that we should not name and shame as if it's a bad thing. It's not about, but we have no problem to name and shame third countries, but we shy off from talking about our own problems. And it's a bit hypocritical to assume that once a country becomes a European Union member state, it's perfect. And we're human, we make mistakes. We cannot be perfect, so we need to talk about our potential problems. So there's many solutions. We can report, we can monitor, we can talk. There's been progress since the discussion on Hungary, and Hungary is not targeted especially. It's the first country that we had a specific discussion on, but the intention was never to criticize or target Hungary. The intention was to start talking about EU member states and potential problems, violations of EU values or fundamental rights, and to do this on a more regular basis. For example, I would love, and my personal motivation would be to, in this whole thing, was to start talking about the problems Greece faces. And being a human rights defender means that actually you are committing a patriotic act by talking about the problems your country has. And unfortunately, as we've seen, if there is external pressure, then internal changes happen. And if there's no external pressure or scrutiny, governments never feel that they have done a mistake or they're wrong and feel they have to change anything. So actually we are being patriotic by talking about the problems of our country.
Actually, it's kind of strange for people to see that the Green Party is getting actively involved in, being somewhat the engine of, formulating bad opinion about the country.
But as Greens, we have a stable position that we want to talk about internal EU problems of fundamental rights, and we want to talk about how to monitor better and better regulate, and not only talk about third countries, but to talk about our own problems as well as an EU and member states. And this is our position. As Greens, we are advocates for fundamental rights and we are human rights defenders. And let's be frank, the European Commission has started infringement procedures against Hungary. It is all very well documented also in the Parliament report and in other reports from the Council of Europe, for example. So this is not just a political debate. There are facts and evidence, and the Commission has infringement procedures and it's in court. So it's not, there's no conspiracy against Hungary. It's just a normal process. And it's not shameful. or Hungary is not. It's not that it's the bad example. There's many countries that have a lot of problems, and this is exactly the point. We have to start talking about them. We are a union of democracies, and nobody's perfect. The whole debate, the whole discussion should happen so we can achieve the ideal.
You're using this idealistic language as if the EU was like really a moral construction concerned with the well-being of its citizens and so forth. Many people again think that this is not the case, and it's more like an economic, entity, and the only concern here is like how the economy performs. I don't know if.
Well, it started. It started with the economic unity and the market being a common market being the priority, but not anymore. After the Lisbon Treaty, social cohesion is at the same level with economic cohesion, so it should be a priority. And in the end, it's up to you and me as citizens of the European Union. What kind of European Union do we want? Don't we want an ideal European Union? It's not a foreign entity, it's not the others, it's us. We are citizens of Europe, we can shape it as we want.
Well, you're saying it's up to us, it's up to the citizens. What's the message? What should Hungarian citizens, Hungarian Greens do about all this? What do you think we should do to really...
Well, you tell me, you're a Hungarian Green. The answer should come for you for your country, from me for my country, and all together how to better monitor and really live in our lifetime the European Union we would like to see.
Okay, I kind of like that answer. Thank you very much.